Culture and race and risk assessment. The negative associations of risk assessment in relation to race and culture are widely recognised. For example, in the statistics regarding mental health detention and ethnicity, or as far as police activity is concerned, in terms of the proportions of people subject to stop and search. This is an area, like many across this course, that should require a complete course in its own right. So I do apologise for only giving it the briefest of attention here. But I also acknowledge, as a white male, I'm not the best qualified or experienced to be delivering training on this subject, at least not in any depth. But I also do not see this as an area of practice that I simply wish to ignore or gloss over. In very simplistic but heartfelt terms, I do feel that the main messages of values, principles, the practice of person-centered working as set out across this course should be applied to anyone equally, regardless of race, culture, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, disability. And that at least is a starting point. We talk about being non-judgmental. None of us can be. But we do need to look to apply with openness and equality the ideas that are put across the whole of this course. I also accept that the whole concept of risk assessment and of risk decision making is culturally determined. What I present here comes from a white European North American tradition, and discrimination through poorly applied assessment skills frequently occurs. So I encourage everyone accessing this course to be very aware of how racial stereotypes can easily infiltrate the way we practice, and to make efforts to access relevant literature to help you at least think about these issues and how you may reflect on how you can change and adapt what you and the teams that you're in do in practice. To this end, I offer a short list of relevant literature as a resource in this module. And I must say that active listening is the key skill, a starting point to help us step back from jumping to conclusions, largely based on discriminatory thinking steeped in stereotypes of race, culture, gender, etc. The race and risk assessment literature focuses on violence and aggression and criminal justice systems by and large. So again, this is a very narrow focus that I'm presenting. Here are the 8 key factors that have been researched and identified from meta-analyses of numerous research papers. And these are believed to hold increased validity as risk factors in predictive risk assessment. These risk factors have been shown to have great similarity across cultures, but that still doesn't mean that they are similarly appropriate in practice, because risk item content most often still reflects the practices, the perceptions, the norms, the belief systems, and the behavioral expectations of Western cultures. After all, this is where they were by and large designed, and this is where, as a result, they were subsequently researched. They rarely take sufficient account that the risks and needs of people from other cultural backgrounds may be alienated by a Western-centric approach to this whole dialogue. For example, migration stresses, low economic status, and discrimination will all impact on this central 8 set of risk factors set out here when applied to individuals of different cultural backgrounds, subject to very personal triggers that cause them to migrate. Psychological constructs such as morality, perceptions of justice, affordance of shame and anger. These will all differ between cultures. Family values of integrity and harmony, social relationships and norms, structured daily life, a sense of individualism, migrant disadvantages in relation to education and employment opportunities. All of these will have cultural differences, much harder to discern if I, as a white male, born and raised in the UK, is doing that risk assessment. Finally, the use of structured risk assessment instruments, which are generally European American in origin, have been shown to demonstrate indecisive validity when analysed across other cultures. Though it also has to be said there's been insufficient studies being made in this area to be entirely conclusive about that statement that I just made. My main message here is that we still need to bear in mind our own cultural biases and our own ethnic background in relation to any person we're working with or serving. With a little bit of searching, you'll find a range of literature on studies of risk and specific racial or cultural groups. Again, I'm going to emphasize most of these will be around violence and aggression, criminal justice, prison populations. And there's biases already in those populations, massive ones. I've provided just a small number of sources that you can locate online. Try and read at least one of these references. But just as importantly is for us to continually reflect on our own biases and prejudices, however unintentional or accidental they may be. Think about the psychological and family influences that have been briefly raised in this presentation. And try to put yourself into the shoes of someone who's migrated across part of the world for whatever reasons. How might their circumstances differ from the way you live day to day as an Indigenous person? Then give yourself some time and permission to identify some of your own biases, some of your own stereotypical ideas about how groups of other people might behave or live. Are there any ways in which you might conduct a risk assessment that could misinterpret the motivations, the customs, the behaviours, the actions of someone from a very different background to yourself?